Hi guys, my name's Subtutor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today I wanted to talk about something that I came across in Fortune magazine, or rather on their website, as it was just on my Facebook feed, because why not? But it's something that relates to the hashtag #MeToo movement, it relates to the Lean In group with, what's her name, Sheryl Sandberg. And it's something that I have directly interacted with as part of my time when I was doing management, when I was running teams. Some of the stuff that I've been in and done as part of my coaching and as part of practice and whatever else. So as a result, I wanted to touch in on this because I've got issues with this kind of stuff anyway that I've expressed in other videos, to one extent or another, because it's pretty unrealistic in various ways at times. But in this particular situation, it's more a cascade, like a rolling effect from a social movement into business, into interpersonal interaction between co-workers and so on and so forth, that then negatively impacts everybody. And as a result, I wanted to address this. So the actual topic of this article was is fairly well summed up in the headline. Since hashtag #MeToo, the number of men who are uncomfortable mentoring women has tripled. So let's take a look at this then. So one of the unintended consequences of hashtag #MeToo movement seems to be the alienation of male mentors. Yeah, no shit. Everybody the has a penis and is outwardly kind of male facing, at the very least, is running scared over all of this stuff in regards to sexual harassment and in regards to being left alone with people for the fear of false allegations, or hard to prove allegations, to say the least. Either way, and it's something that has a lot of people concerned. It has a lot of people worried, and understandably so. As I mentioned in some of my videos that I've done around sexual harassment, firstly, the actual definition of harassment is being expanded hugely to cover things that aren't legally or otherwise like fitting the definition of harassment. But also I shared some of my personal experience of seeing individuals who were both actually suffering at the hands of it, and how that situation was dealt with, but also how it was literally used as a tool to get rid of people. You know, when they'd done nothing wrong, based on the evidence available and based on everything that was examined, nothing had those individuals had done nothing wrong, but a woman had accused them, and so as a result they were let go. You know, and that those individuals, especially at the time, considering that in the UK only recently have I can't remember when they came in, but there were costs being associated with tribunals for work disputes and things like that, including things like wrongful dismissal and other HR breaches. And only recently, I think it was only last June, were they removed. And so those, now you've got much more access as someone who lacks funds to seek justice if you are mistreated. Something that a lot of people still won't do, but hey ho. But anyway, a new set of findings from women's empowerment non-profit leanin.org, an online survey platform, SurveyMonkey, reveal that since the media reports of sexual harassment first emerged last fall, male managers are 3 times as likely to say they are uncomfortable mentoring women and twice as uncomfortable working alone with a woman. The hesitation to meet with women outside of work is even more pronounced. Senior men were 3.5 times more likely to hesitate having a work dinner with a young female colleague than a young male one, and 5 times more likely to hesitate to travel for work with a junior woman. Now, I can understand areas of that, especially in regards to things like going and having work dinners, going and having kind of business trips with women, and that's because men have, over the last few years especially, been battered with these kind of things, where there's an element of the hashtag Me Too movement that I completely understand, completely sympathise with, where there's the strength in numbers, where there's the discussion around shared experience or similar experience. But there are also the people who are using it as a blunt force weapon to beat people to death with. And those people have much more kind of political motives and are very aggressive with them. And they tend to choose targets that are entirely based on a generalization, and not a generalization used for better understanding, but a generalization used to just mark everyone with the same brush. But anyway, let's take a look at this new set of findings, because the new set of findings link in the article, which I'll link in the description as well. I'll link both the main article and the leanin.org survey results. But first off, it doesn't tell us where, like, what the sample size was, where this information came from, how many people were talked to, what the split was between men and women. It doesn't give us any of the particulars about this survey. So that's the first thing that makes me go, there are a fair amount of these things that I can completely understand, but we should still treat them with an element of skepticism, because we don't know where they've come from, who's answered, and how they're going to deal with it. And this wouldn't be the first time the Sheryl Sandberg and her cronies are very happy to misrepresent information, because they are willing to do so to such an extent that they then also want to force things like banning bossy. That was these people. And so she makes a few good points. I'll admit, Sheryl Sandberg, she did a TED talk, and some of it was nonsense, but there are a couple of good points there. And this is the problem that I have with lots of people that will kind of splash people in one way or the other. There are always good ideas. They might be hidden in piles and piles of crap, but there are always good ideas in those places too. Not everything is terrible, but even people from her own extreme kind of angle were criticizing her, because a lot of what she was saying seemed to them to be, oh, well, all you're doing is making women more in line with what men want, and what they're losing parts of themselves to engage with the system that already exists, and as a result they're only getting better that way, and so you're a traitor. It's faux feminism. But hey ho. But let's take a look at what their findings were. So the first one that's highlighted here, quite conveniently in yellow, is almost half of male managers are uncomfortable participating in common work activity with a woman, such as mentoring, working alone, or socialising together. Okay, yeah, I can understand that. Because, in the workplace, especially if you've got a workplace that is very kind of imbalanced in terms of the split between the sexes, working with a woman may pose more obstacles because of the different ways of working. Mentoring and things like that, you're going to be spending a lot of time alone with that person. You're going to be spending time alone where, again, this is after #MeToo, apparently, which is going to be fairly fresh in most people's minds. Working alone, again, you don't want to be left alone with that person. It leaves you open to attack, whether you've actually done anything or not. And socialising together. Socialising together is the one thing that's the worst thing, I would imagine, because there you're not even in a work setting where you've got policies and rules and things like that keep you in place. Socialising in the workplace is still constrained to one extent or another by the rules of that workplace. You go out and socialise outside of that, you can drift off into all manner of different places. All it would take would be one very drunken work do. You wake up next to someone and then you get accused of harassment or rape or something like that because they've regretted the night. Not saying that that's every single situation, but there are situations that have been demonstrated to be just that. And, wasting police time. If they've even been reported to the police and it hasn't just been some kind of Twitter kind of lynch mob. So, yes, I can imagine that half of male managers are uncomfortable and worried about these things. But then again, that still suggests that half of male managers, myself included, when I was in management, have no issue with these things. So yeah, guess what? If the thing is, I would love to see this swapped round. Half of female managers are uncomfortable participating in common work activity with a man, such as mentoring, working alone, or socializing together. I mean, we're being told here, and we'll get into this more as we go through, but we're being told here that men need to get over it, men need to do more, men need to, and it's like, well, no, but hold on. If this was a female manager was uncomfortable with common work activity with a man, such as mentoring, working alone, or socializing, then it would be on the man to make her more comfortable, wouldn't it? It would be on the policies to change to ensure that she was better protected. So then why is it seemingly suggested here that the men are going to have to need to do something? You know, it's uneven. It's not being addressed from an even position. Anyway, the next one. Almost 30% of male managers are uncomfortable working alone with a woman, more than twice as many as before. #MeToo. Yeah, no kidding. Because they are suddenly aware and awake to a situation that they don't want to be drawn into. You know, along with all the allegations that are actually factual, the Harvey Weinsteins of the world, you know, that are being exposed by this, then you've also got the people who are having their names dragged through the mud based on, what, a handful of tweets? No real evidence, no reports to the police, nothing. It's just literally they don't like this person and they've been drawn through the mud. Or it was, oh, well, there were awkward conversations and they tried to flirt with me on more than one occasion after I'd said no. It's like, okay, so they were, you know, still just trying to be, you know, foster some kind of relationship with you. They were trying to do that, maybe not in the most expert way, and so as a result, they've been lambasted by the entirety of a Twitter hashtag with thousands and thousands of people behind it. Yeah, I can imagine that. I'm surprised the number isn't in some way on par with the half of managers before. You know, it's still a kind of concerning thing for a lot of people. It's not that surprising. The number of male managers who are uncomfortable mentoring women has more than tripled from 5% to 16%. Well, yeah, that's just following the same numbers we've seen before. This means that 1 in 6 male managers may now hesitate to mentor a woman. Yeah, but then again, how many of them are doing this with any kind of regularity anyway? We had 3, 4 people from a team of 6 or 7 that would occasionally take on mentoring. For the most part, there were 2 of us, you know, for a team of 30 odd people. You know, in one place that I worked, we had a team of about 120. And the only person doing any kind of... We had one trainer who was a member of the team who was just given the extra position of trainer. But then in terms of mentorship and growth and development on a one-to-one basis, especially amongst the management, we had one of us, me, that was doing it with any kind of regularity for the rest of the team. And so as a result, you know, it's you know, and then within the management, mentoring wasn't a thing that happened at all. We were given tests, we were forced to do various forms of training, but in terms of actual mentorship, the person that was in charge of our entire team didn't do any of that. We had meetings and we would voice our concerns and nothing would be done about them. You know, there was never any one-on-one personal growth stuff either. You know, it made no difference. And in that case, the team was mostly male and the woman that was in charge of our team, who was supposed to be enriching us, was female. Unsurprisingly, considering I just said she was a woman. But again, flip this round the other way. The number of female managers who are uncomfortable mentoring men has more than tripled, from 5% to 16%. This means that 1 in 6 female managers may now hesitate to mentor a man. Okay, so then what would happen with that? If a woman was feeling uncomfortable about this, what would be the suggested solution? Because there has to be some kind of parity between these solutions depending on whether it was a man or a woman doing it, because I can almost guarantee that there are women that feel uncomfortable mentoring men. You know, it does go both ways. It's just that this is being highlighted as a result of a social media thing that has then been questioned about. And I feel like, again, we don't know where all of this information has come from, which If I go down to the bottom just quickly, where it says the notes on methodology, all it says is that both studies were weighted for age, race, sex, education, geography, and it's like, to try and reflect the demographic composition of the United States population, age 18 and over. Yeah, but what do you mean? How was it? How did you manage that? And then you look at the poll was conducted over 2 days in January 2018, with a sample size of just under 3,000 people. And then they did another one at the beginning of February, from over the course of 3 days, with another sample of 6,000 people. So provided those two things don't have much overlap, you've got a maximum of about 9,000 people that you're trying to represent 324 million or something. That isn't going to be representative properly, no matter which way you do it. And especially considering that you have only allowed for, between the two, about 5 days worth of survey time, maybe a little more if they did it the whole day of the 23rd to the 25th and the whole day of the 1st to the 4th. That's still not a huge amount of time that's been offered there for people to engage with this. In which case, again, I'm like, where's this info coming from? But anyway, next factoid. Senior men are 3.5 times more likely to hesitate to have a work dinner with junior level women than with junior level men, and 5 times more likely to hesitate to travel for work with junior level women. Well, is this at all surprising? Again, Harvey Weinstein has been one of the most high-profile targets reasonably so, but he's been one of the most high-profile targets, and every single one of his abuses was when he was out suggesting things for work at meals, or inviting people up to his hotel for whatever else, for supposedly meetings to further their career that then turned into things that were legitimately abuses. And so, why would a senior man who's successful, who's got through the backstabbing and vicious environment that corporate work can be, if you're saying that this is a senior individual, then why wouldn't they try and cover their back, cover their ass, make sure that they can't be accused of things? It makes sense, doesn't it? And then here we go. The next one. Women and men feel similarly about the media reports of sexual harassment. 47% are not surprised, and 25% think this is the tip of the iceberg. So half of them say that they're not surprised. Well, yeah, they're not surprised. But what aren't they surprised about? About the kind of the explosion of it, about the hashtag MeToo movement, about the way in which it was handled, where there is a definitive slant in various different forms of media, that they're not surprised that it's happening, but that's not what's said. They're saying that they're not surprised about the media reports. So what does that even mean? And 25% think this is just the tip of the iceberg. But the tip of the iceberg of what? Media representation of this, reporting of it, whether or not it's actually happening. Again, unclear and vague, to say the least. And then, last one, about half of women and men say their companies have responded to the Me Too movement by acting or taking action against harassers, updating their policies, or offering employee guidance or training. And then, in brackets, shockingly, half have not. Well, yeah, the ones that haven't probably just either have a very one-sided demographic in their workforce. For example, I can't see policies being updated for oil rig technicians, for instance, who are predominantly male. But I would kind of sit here going, well, yeah, there's also a huge number that just looked at their policies and went, we've already done as much as we can. We've already got everything in there that aligns up perfectly with the law and even goes beyond it, and so we don't have anything to worry about. That just means that they potentially performed a review, half of them have performed a review, and they found that their policies were fine. That's neither here nor there. But then taken action against harassers, meaning what? Updating their policies, meaning what? Employee guidance or training, meaning what? This is too broad. Because if you're saying action against harassers, so anybody that's ever been complained about ever in any way, shape, or form who just happens to be accused of harassment, even if it's not by definition or otherwise, does that mean that they're getting warnings? That they're having conversations to improve their behaviour? To modify their behaviour? Are they getting the guidance and training, or are they being let go? Are they being sacked? Are they being kind of demoted or otherwise harshly dealt with when it's potentially a one person's word against their own kind of situation? Updating their policies. Are they updating them in line with the law, or are they overstepping by a significant margin? Is the employee guidance or training only being offered to men? Is it being offered to women to confront men? What does that even mean? It's the way that this has been put forward and the way that they've tried to represent it is very nebulous. There isn't a lot of specificity to it, which bugs me personally, because these are very specific situations that we're talking about here that already have precedent in law, precedent in best practices for business, and so on and so forth. But obviously we've got to a point where these things are in the public eye and are being further explored and developed. And the one thing that stands out to me about that last element there in regards to, they've reviewed policies, they've done this, they've done that. Yeah, but they're doing it to cover their own arses. They're not doing it for the good of women or the good of the people that they're working with to prevent harassment. They're doing it so that the company doesn't come into disrepute. They're not doing it to protect people. They're doing it to protect some nebulous entity that makes a lot of money off stupid people. That's all they're doing, But then, of course, there was a lot of support, rather unsurprisingly, from various people who were either attached to Sheryl Sandberg or otherwise. But then let's take a look further down, where then we start talking rather after they've been like, oh yes, well this is all due to Me Too and Harvey Weinstein and people like Kevin Spacey and whoever else being kind of highlighted. We've also got this snowballing into people, especially men, expressing hesitation and about being alone with women because there's such an issue with this, where you've got people going, well, in the article it's a Fox News analyst that's quoted, but I've heard and seen this being kind of repeated an awful lot after it became more public knowledge, where Vice President Mike Pence has a policy of avoiding being alone with other women other than his wife. And people are saying that seems like a policy that's going to have to come in for a lot of people. And to my mind, I'm like, no, that's ridiculous. There are a lot of people that I coach who are female in one, to one extent or another. Coaching has a main demographic in terms of personal coaching of women between like their mid-20s and mid-50s. So, if I was going to go, well, I can't be alone with those people, then I wouldn't be able to do my job if those people came to me and wanted my help, wanted the services that I provide as a kind of interventive thing for them to improve with. So, that to me is a nonsense. And I'll get into my personal experience with mentoring specifically in a moment. But then they get on to the point of going, well, this isn't a solution. Separating men and women, that doesn't help anyone. But the thing is, they highlight it's not just, it doesn't help anyone, because it doesn't help anyone. If you can't work with people of the opposite sex just because they're of the opposite sex, then jobs don't get done, communication doesn't happen, developments don't become realities if they're just an idea that then has to have a whole team working on it. You're not going to get anywhere with it if you can't have people on your team working together. And so as a result, though, it doesn't help anyone, men or women. And yet the attitude that steps the they have is, oh well, it's far from a solution because it hurts women. Well, no, it doesn't just hurt women, it hurts everybody. We're two sides of the same coin, as I say in every single one of these damn videos that I make. Men and women are literally built around this dichotomy where you've got the strengths of one filling in for the weaknesses of the other, and vice versa. And so, you know, we when we work together, we can accomplish so much more if we just look out for each other. You don't have to be a man to be part of a team with men to then still cover their asses and help them out when their backs are against the wall. You know, you don't have to be another woman to be on a team with other women to then work with them in a way that helps you cut to the quick on things and get the job done. You know, it's all about becoming more a team entity than an individual one, but it's still built around cooperation between individuals. You know, it's this balancing act between the two. But anyway, their comment is, the hashtag #MentorHer campaign aims to educate about just why mentorship is so crucial to achieving gender parity in the workplace. Among with powerful statistics, the campaign's site points out, based on leanin.org's research, people with mentors are more likely to get promoted. Yeah, I can see that because they're being led down a path. Mentors or usually also provide some element of coaching to people. Coaching, of course, is something that I'm going to believe in and espouse wholeheartedly. So yeah, I can attest to this, as I've been both mentored and the mentor to get promotions and to help people with promotions. Women are 24% less likely than men to get advice from senior leaders. Do they ask for it? Because I know full well from my own experience that it comes down to the guys will come in and go, Seb, I've got a question. Because they're just going to be direct. Women, though, are more likely to be fearful of seeming weak, especially when they're on a mostly male team, where they're having to put up with the guys, you know, messing around and a bit of horseplay, a bit of stupidity, when they're just letting off steam at various points throughout their shift. You know, they're going to have to kind of harden themselves up to that. So then when it comes to them having an issue and having to ask, it entirely depends on whether or not the senior leader is approachable, whether or not that person feels comfortable to do it. There were times when I would be asked questions that I could do nothing about, but I had made myself available, I'd made myself approachable. And so then, you know, it was a case of me often turning around to them and going, I can't help you, you need to talk to the boss. And that would cause them to go, oh, well, I didn't really, yeah. And then they bring up the statistic of 62% of women of colour say the lack of influential mentor holds them back. And it's like, okay, in what situations? Like, that's a very nebulous statistic that brings race into this otherwise completely disconnected, sex-focused kind of situation here. The situations aren't being addressed. Again, it's very nebulous. It's not particularly specific. There's no evidence for much of what they said here, even if it adds up. But then Sandberg writes, if we're going to change the power imbalance that enables so much sexual harassment in the first place, I'd point out just on as a little thing here, the industries that we have seen most prominently highlight this are the industries that literally use people for their looks, for their bodies. Yeah, modeling, things like music, things where you've got them as stage performers, things like the movies and TV where you've got them as actual performers, and they are being selected for roles based on, yes, their acting talent, but also when you've got a good supply of acting talent, people being able to pretend to be other people on camera, read scripts, not have to think for themselves, follow direction. And then you've got the look of the character that you're going for. You're going to purely select on kind of image, on the way someone looks. And there's a hugely emotional and instinct development in that. It's like what I've said when I've been talking about statistics coming off Tinder in regards to dating and dating app, and how it's all very flesh market-y, you know. When you're in that kind of place and you're in a market that is purely based on appearance, on the flesh that you're born in and whether or not it looks good, then you become just that. You become a product. And things, not to start messing around with the subject versus object stuff, because people become subjects and objects in perception and in reference all the time, back and forth. But in regards to reducing someone's rights to that of an object, like definitively doing so, the various directors, casting agents, and whoever else that will literally turn around to people and go, you need to lose weight because you need to fit this package. That's something whereby you're reducing someone to parameters the same way you would a specification for a purchasable thing. And as a result, it's it's absolutely no surprise to me that you find a lot of this stuff from all of these places has been highlighted there. So it's not purely the supposed power imbalance. It's because you can have good leaders, good managers who are either very, very aligned with policy and whatever else, that maintain a power balance for their specific workplace and prevent things like sexual harassment or negative work environments and things like that. So that seems neither here nor there. But we need to ensure women get more mentorship and sponsorship, not less. That's how we get the stretch assignments that lead to promotions. That's how we build the networks that put us on the path to exciting opportunities. That's how we get the respect and recognition we deserve. Issue: you don't deserve any. No one deserves. Those are things that are earned. Recognition is earned through hard graft. You have to go and prove that you are capable of doing a thing. You have to prove that you can toe a company line. You need to prove that you stand out. That's how you get recognition. Respect: you need to stick to your values. You need to be consistent. You need to continue to work hard. You need to do things that, again, make you stand out. Those are things that generate respect. We've talked about respect before in videos. And recognition, to be fair. So you deserve neither of those two things. If you aren't making yourself stand out enough to be granted those opportunities, then you need to rework what you are doing. Either in terms of pushing forward, being more consistent, getting more work done, or in terms of actively going and seeking help. You don't get unless you ask. Here, this is a lot of complaining, hoping that you will receive the help you want. You're not just going straight to the people that can provide and asking them. In which case, now let me share with you some of my experiences as a mentor when I was working in corporate. So I've worked at head offices before to a lesser extent, but most of the stuff that I've done has been site-based, where it's been a shop or a place that's open to the public. And so as a result, being in those big corporate chains where I'm 2 positions lower than the effective head of the company for our area or whatever, then we've got a couple of things that stand out to me from my experience, and that is that there were a few people who were very, very driven in terms of women, and they would come to me and they would ask me questions. They would look towards kind of new stuff that they wanted. They would get the work done. They would do whatever they could to make my life easier, because then I would be able to turn around and suggest that they be moved forward for other things, extra training, extra development, more useful stuff. Because why would I waste time on the people that don't make my life easier? If they're not going to make my life easy, if they're not going to help me out, then why would I invest my time in solving their problems, helping them advance? Straightforward, right? In which case, if all you're doing is complaining and you're not looking to help your manager, then why would they look to help you? Next thing, they actually came and talked to me about it. There was one girl in particular who I will always be so proud of, because I saw her one of the first times that she came into our store after she just got hired, and she was put on till, and she just couldn't hack it. The judgment of the people, the negative attitudes of people in a fast-paced environment where they wanted to get served, they wanted to get out the door. That took a real toll on her. She was in tears. She just broke down. And yet, over the 4.5 years that I worked with her, she grew. And some of that, there was one session that I sat down with her for about 3 hours, 2 hours of which was outside of my shift. And we went through so much, and we laid out a bit of a plan, and then it took her a while to get there, but she got the promotion. She actually got the promotion after I left, when she was still enacting the plan and doing the stuff that we had talked about way back before, and she did so well. And as far as I'm aware, she's still there, still doing that job. Maybe not enjoying it, but it's more than she was by a long stretch from when she started. How did she get there? She came to talk to me. She came to make my life easy. She demonstrated that she was dependable on my shifts when I was working with her. That's how she stood out. Another individual who came to me and she went, I want to be on the management training. I want to move up. How do I get there? Well, this is how you get there. Right, I'll go and talk to our boss then. She went and talked to the boss, convinced him that she was up for it, did it, and then left. And she went and, as far as I'm aware, started her own business. She went and did a couple of other little things in between, and then she went off and did her own thing, and has done pretty well from what I understand, from last I saw of her. So she's living more comfortably and she's doing what she wants. Guess what? She's not some big corporate head honcho. She's earning enough to live comfortably, but not vastly and hugely outside of what she was earning before. And yet, why has she done this? Well, she's done this because now she's got more time to spend with her friends and family. She's got more time to do what she wants, and she's happy. One of the reasons that I left corporate, I could have continued to travel up the chain again and again and again. I actually turned down a promotion for the opportunity to move out of corporate and work hard more on having nothing and working that into something, rather than being stuck in a position where I already felt I had lost so much of my soul. And this is a thing that lots more people are doing, especially among millennials. Yeah? Because there's a lack in regards to one extent or another, in regards to entrepreneurial kind of drive in one way or another. But also there's a lack of, you've got the millennial problem that's brought up again and again and again, where you've got millennials leaving jobs and not wanting to do things anymore because they're not making the impact, because they're not in an environment that they like, because they don't feel enough from what they're doing. Even if they're doing a really great job and making real big differences, they're not doing enough to make an impact on them inside. And as a result, they perceive that as not being an impact on the world around them, and it brings them down, and they don't want to be in that place anymore, so they look to go elsewhere. So, this stuff, it's ignoring again the stuff that is always brought up around things like the wage gap, where the differences between men and women, what men and women want, our priorities, all of those things are completely disregarded in favour of just driving an agenda. And in regards to, this has happened after this particular social movement that has battered both kind of legitimate monsters and innocent people alike. it's not surprising that the main kind of cause, the main group behind that movement, are the ones that are now being given a wide berth. Like, I personally would be amongst the number of individuals who are completely removed from being concerned, because personally I've been a mentor, I've been a coach for a fair number of years now, and so as a result I don't have an issue about being one-on-one with people. I talk to you guys more than enough tangentially about my girlfriend and the things that we do, and how much I care about her and stuff like that, to seemingly suggest how much I communicate with her, even though we're so far away from one another, and as a result, how little I would look to hide from her. So if I was going to do anything, then it's something that if I was going to be abusive, if I was going to be negative, if I was going to do something stupid, then it's not something that I would really be able to hide very well, I don't feel. And as a result, I've got paper trail, I've got evidence, I've got support. And so I never personally feel worried about being around women by themselves or anything like that, because they can rant, they can rave, they can attack me if they so wish. But there will be no point at which I'll be negatively impacted by them, in my personal view. And so as a result, when it comes to it, I've got a paper trail. I keep track of where I'm going and what I'm doing for business anyway, who I'm doing it with. And so as a result, I'm not surprised that in places where CEOs and managers aren't able to do that, where they work in such large corporations or large teams that they are just thrown into these different environments and different roles, that they can't always keep track of every single person. I'm not surprised that some of them are going, well, I can identify this one group and I don't want to be left alone with them in case something bad happens. It's a legitimate fear. It's somewhat maybe irrational in certain instances, depending on what your team is like, but it's something that I can completely understand. But again, those statistics that we mentioned earlier, you flip them around the other way, and it would be a case of women being given extra purview. It'd be them having exceptions made so that they probably wouldn't have to go and interact with men in those ways if they didn't want to. But because it's men being apprehensive, they're being told just to man up, get on with it, do more. Not fair, not even. It's pushing people to different sides again. And the simple thing that I've said numerous times is, jobs should go to people that want them, and then it should be the best qualified person for the position, the right person, the right time, in the right job, meritocratically. Yeah, simple, straightforward. It shouldn't matter who you are, what you're doing. I personally quite like the idea of blind hires, where you're not meeting the person directly until maybe the third stage of an interview. Everything else is completely blind, so you're looking at the facts of what they've done before, the facts of how well they will perform in your industry, in your place, and then you because obviously part of hiring is whether or not someone will fit in with your team. In which case it's like, okay, so if you've got a collection of people that you have narrowed down based purely on their merits, not based on who they are, what their name is, who their various bits and pieces from their past are, whether what colour their skin is, what they have between their legs, whatever. If you've narrowed it down based purely on what they can do, and then you turn around and go, can this person work on my team? Literally the one question. Can this person work on my team, with my team? In which case, then we can look at interviewing maybe as more of a social filtering element at the end of an interviewing process, to allow for that to work out. To let you know whether or not that person will fit in. And then after that, there you have it. You have your answer. Whoever performs the best in that situation gets hired. Simple, straightforward, easy. If you're not working on teams and you're each a different independent body within the company, then it becomes even easier because you don't need that last part. But hey, anyway, guys, I hope you found this interesting, because this is something that I wanted to address, because I get talked about so much, talked to about this kind of stuff rather so much, and like it's especially whenever I come across Sheryl Sandberg, I always just raise my eyebrows, because she's the COO of Facebook as well, I believe, or at least she's some big wig at Facebook, and it's like, so even some of her statements there have just been pretty pathetic, to be fair, and it just makes me go, "Why? This person is a particularly wealthy, very successful woman who has done it through limited mentorship, but has seemingly done it quite successfully and continuously after a certain point, and yet now she's arguing for more exceptions to be made for more women, even though she is a living example of how capable and powerful and potent women can be by themselves." It's to a degree what she's criticized as by and what the Lean In movement is criticized as by their own side, as it were, by other feminists, where they say it's infantilizing. But then a lot of the suggestions that come out of that go way further and way further off the rails than this. So hey, anyway, guys, I hope you found this interesting. I'm going to leave this here. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in regards to this stuff, because obviously I've got my time being mentored and as a mentor and as a coach, and how none of this is surprising. It's really not surprising that men are more apprehensive about having to spend more time alone with female co-workers when all of this stuff has blown up and it seems to be hitting people left and right, whether they're actually innocent or actually some kind of abuser, just because the kind of the evidence and proof to support claims isn't something that, rather unsurprisingly, isn't something that's being followed up on Twitter, of all places. But anyway, guys, love to hear your thoughts, love to hear your experiences, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you found this useful or interesting, and please, if you like this video, drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.